Hey, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores. I was not able to get my training camp breakdown out yesterday, so today we're gonna do a part 1 and 2 for days 6 and 7, all coming out today. I'm gonna discuss day 6 right now in this video, gonna discuss day 7 in the next video, but because I'm discussing day 6 on Wednesday, I have a little bit of context, and we don't have to panic about certain things, most notably Curtis Samuel, when I get to the injury part of this video. Now that I know what I know in the future from the point of view of day 6. So now I'm kind of glad that I was a little too busy yesterday. But either way, this is a video breaking down day 6. Again, part 2, day 7 will come out a little later. And y'all already know, man, with all of these training camp breakdowns, I go position group by position group, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, so on and so forth, all the way through the defense, all the way to special teams, and any other randomness at the end. And of course, we start with the injury updates. Who got hurt, who got better, all of that type of stuff. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure y'all pull up to the Friday night stream, 7 to 9 p.m. every Friday, where we talk about literally everything under the sun. And then make sure y'all pull up every Sunday for the call-in show, where you, the viewer, has the chance to call in, ask whatever questions you may have, or talk about whatever you want to talk about, rant about whatever you want to rant about. And without further ado, man, let's get it. Alright, so first of all, as many of y'all may know, Tuesday's practice, day 6, was the first padded practice of the Washington Commanders 2022 training camp. Yes, sir. Now, of course, you didn't get all of the clacking noises that you normally get when you first start wearing pads because of the Guardian caps that are on, the little soft white things on top of the helmets, on the outer shell of the helmets. But it was definitely still a different atmosphere. And like I've been saying, it's hard to really evaluate offensive line, defensive line, and guys like Jamin Davis and Benjamin St-Juste as far as how they can handle work in the trenches. And it's just so many things that are so hard to evaluate until you get the pads on. And so it was just a completely different feel. Practice felt completely different. It was way more exciting. It felt way more real and closer to what we'll see in the regular season and all of that. So, man, it was beautiful. Also, Tuesday, day 6 of practice, as in yesterday, was the first time we started to see some one-on-one matchups with the defensive line against the offensive line and the receivers versus the defensive backs. So they brought back pads and highly competitive one-on-ones all in the same day, man. Telling you, man, it was a different type of atmosphere out there. But let's start with injuries before we start to get to the position groups and individual players that stuck out, whether it be good or bad. First of all, you had Curtis Samuel, John Bates, Trey Apke, Dewan Neal, and of course the 3 guys on PUP on the side field to start practice. So the 3 guys on PUP, Chase Young, Logan Thomas, and Tyler Larson. And then again, outside of those guys that are on PUP, who are obviously going to be on the side field every day until they get off of PUP, you had Curtis Samuel, John Bates, Trey Apke, and Dewan Neal. And of course, at this point, we were looking at Curtis Samuel like, all right, man, this is like the 3rd or 4th training camp day in a row that you just haven't participated at all. We're looking at you crazy. And I'm going to talk about what he did in day 7 because he was finally in pads. I was super excited about that, but we'll see how much it actually really matters and if he's going to be able to put together consecutive days. Because then that's when I'll maybe start to consider Curtis Samuel as one of the 53 members on this team going into the regular season, because as of right now, to me, he doesn't exist. If we get him, cool, that's extra. But as of right now, man, Curtis Samuel is not on the team until he's able to put together consecutive days of practice. But moving on, yesterday you also had James Smith-Williams, who wasn't practicing for the first time, who also wasn't practicing. He's working through a hip injury. And an update on John Bates, because he's been missing a few practices in training camp. Now we finally know it's a calf issue. But with all of those guys, they're saying it's not anything crazy, like Trey Turner, James Smith-Williams, John Bates. None of their injuries are very serious. I mean, they're even downplaying Curtis Samuel's injury, so we'll see. And then in sad news, undrafted free agent linebacker Drew White ended up getting carted off of the field. Undrafted linebacker out of Notre Dame went down after trying to spin around Antonio Gibson in a pass protection drill. And I'm really happy that they're doing these pass protection drills because it's helping the running backs learn how to pick up blitzes. Again, J.D. McKissick is our best pass blocking running back, and it shouldn't be that way. He's the smallest out of the top 3. Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, if they can learn the technique and awareness and the mental side that J.D. McKissic has fully down pat, they should be better pass blockers. So I'm glad that we're working on that with them, and I'm glad that Antonio Gibson is one of the main guys out there working on it and improving. And at the same time, linebackers learn how to blitz better. They learn how to maneuver around a running back picking up their blitz when they're trying to get to the quarterback. So it's a very beneficial drill for both linebackers and running backs, or whoever else you may want to participate in it on the defensive side of the ball. But sadly, on this play, with Drew White again trying to spin around Antonio Gibson in the pass protection drill, he apparently hurt his knee. He was very upset. And usually when guys are like clearly very upset about their injury, you know it's usually very bad. And then Rivera later on confirmed that it was a torn ACL. So man, get well soon. I hope to see what he can do next training camp, because I like Drew White and I was excited to see what he can do. So man, I can't wait to get him back as soon as possible for sure. Now moving on to the quarterbacks. Now Monday was like the worst day for the offense so far this offseason. Like just mini camps, OTAs, anything. That was the worst day for the entire offense. That was the worst day for Carson Wentz as well. But it wasn't just Carson Wentz. But on Tuesday, day 6 of training camp, Carson Wentz bounced back somewhat. He was hitting Jahan Dotson when he was open. He was finding Terry McLaurin easily. It was really good timing. It was great ball placement throughout quite a bit of the practice. But then in the last 11-on-11 phase, he overshot 2 deep balls. And then he also tried to flip a ball between a linebacker and a safety, which is literally the mind-boggling turnover type of stuff that we are trying to avoid with Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, if he plays relatively safe, if he takes the layups and avoids doing too much, we should be straight this season. But then when you have him out here literally flipping the ball like this, trying to put it in between a linebacker and a safety, that's ridiculous. And it was almost a turnover. It should have been a turnover with pressure on him too. I mean, he's about to get sacked. He's trying to do this, and it fell flat. He didn't get it up high enough, and Benjamin St-Juste had an opportunity to get it, but it fell incomplete. Who knows how consistently lucky Carson Wentz can get with that type of stupidity throughout a regular season and hopefully postseason. So you gotta chill on doing stuff like that, man. I mean, I understand having fun in practice, but can you try to simulate the real thing as much as possible? And I really hope that's not you simulating the real thing as much as possible. Please no. But again, before that last phase of 11-on-11s, he threw a beautiful deep ball to De'Ami Brown. It seemed like he was just connecting with everybody. In 7-on-7s, he hit Jahan Dotson for 2 straight back-to-back 20-plus yard passes. I mean, he definitely looked way better day 6, as in yesterday, than he did day 5 Monday, which was again the worst offensive performance we've seen this offseason from the Washington Commanders, especially Carson Wentz, who had 3 interceptions on Monday. No interceptions on Tuesday, even though he should have had one. But I'm glad to hear that he bounced back. Now, granted, he was so bad on Monday that it was really hard to not be better on Tuesday, but it was actually like significantly better. Again, there was ball placement, there was good timing with the receivers, so that's good to hear. And then running backs wise, the final session of the day, the running backs were finding a lot of open lanes, and that's mostly credit to the offensive line, which we're going to talk about when we get there. But apparently, like, every running back that stepped out there was looking pretty good towards the end of yesterday's practice, day 6. And it's crazy too, because J.D. McKissic and Antonio Gibson were the ones finding open lanes in the middle of the defense, and you had Jared Patterson and Brian Robinson attacking the outside. That's literally the reverse of what you'd expect to hear, but that's good that everybody can pretty much do everything and have success with it. And this is like the first time I'm really hearing Jared Patterson's name in any type of positive light. I haven't necessarily heard too much negative stuff either, but this is like the first day, again, day 6, as in Tuesday, yesterday, was the first time I started to hear really good reviews about what Jared Patterson has done this offseason. He had one play where he hit a big hole down the sideline and then was pushed out of bounds by Derek Forrest for like a 15-yard gain. Could have potentially been more. But to start off practice, Brian Robinson got the first carry because Antonio Gibson is just not participating in 11-on-11s just yet. He'll do 7-on-7s, 9s-on-9s, but I don't think he's participating in 11-on-11s just yet. But Brian Robinson would have had a good run if Adarian Mathis didn't make a good play and bottle him up, which again, we'll talk about when we get to the defensive line. But I mostly wanted to tell y'all that just to let y'all know that Antonio Gibson did not participate in an 11-on-11s yesterday, as in Tuesday, day 6. Also, speaking of Antonio Gibson, he had a few drops in warm-ups on Monday to add to how the offense was just terrible. But Tuesday, day 6, yesterday, he definitely looked more locked in. He looked more comfortable catching the ball. Remember, he's a receiver turn running back, so him dropping the ball, there's literally no excuse at all. Brian Robinson, you can kind of see, even though I think he has enough receiving experience in college to where it's no excuse for him either. But Antonio Gibson, you're literally a wide receiver trying to become a running back, and that's where a lot of his struggles come from him being a natural receiver. So what are you doing dropping passes, especially in warm-ups? But that was Monday. On Tuesday, he cleaned it up. He was catching everything that's good. Also, pass rushing drills, the ones I was talking about earlier where Drew White got hurt on, Antonio Gibson looks like a much improved pass protector. Now, granted, we're going to have to see what it looks like in like a real game setting, like 11-on-11s and things like that. But in the one-on-ones with wide open space, Antonio Gibson definitely looked like an improved pass blocker, and that's really good because again, that's one of the main reasons it's hard to keep him out there on third downs. I mean, with him dropping passes, it's hard to keep him out there on third downs for that reason as well. But the main reason that we had JD McKissic out there on so many third downs is because again, he's our best pass blocking running back as of today, until Antonio Gibson or Brian Robinson shows me different. And neither of them are terrible. Like, Antonio Gibson was terrible coming out of college, but he's better now in his third year. Brian Robinson has potential coming out of college this year, and Brian Robinson was easily a better pass blocking running back as a prospect entering the draft than Antonio Gibson. But again, Antonio Gibson may be a little bit ahead because he's been in the league for 3 years. And still, again, at the end of the day, JD McKissic is our best pass blocking running back. But like I already said, there's no excuse. Those other guys are bigger, stronger. They should be better pass blocking running backs. It's all just mental stuff, technique, nuance, all of that type of stuff. So I love the fact that they're doing this drill, and I also love that Antonio Gibson was doing a really good job. I mean, straight up just stonewalling guys. That's what we need. And then, of course, speaking of JD McKissic, he was out there breaking ankles, but that's what you'd expect of him. And I'm hearing that Jared Patterson had a nice couple of plays with the third team. He lowered his shoulder pads after making a catch in the Bryce Notre that was really impressive. And then the play that I was talking about earlier where he got like a 15-yard gain and Derek Forrest had to push him out of bounds, that was a nice play as well soon afterwards. Then moving on to the wide receivers, the most notable things are coming from the one-on-ones. And Terry McLaurin was out there getting busy in one-on-ones, making plays. De'Ami Brown was getting busy. Cam Sims stood out, which is good to hear. Terry McLaurin had a really nice one-on-one rep against Kendall Fuller. De'Ami Brown had a really nice one-on-one rep against William Jackson. And De'Ami Brown also had a really good route against Christian Holmes where he got like 5 yards of separation from him in one-on-ones. And like I said earlier, Jahan Dotson, when they broke into team drills, had 2 back-to-back 20-plus yard receptions. I mean, he's always open. He's always catching anything thrown towards him. And De'Ami Brown, again, had a problem with dropping passes so far throughout training camp, but today he was on it, and again in one-on-one drills, killing anybody that covered him. William Jackson, Christian Holmes, whoever. And then we're going to talk about this in the DB section, but Benjamin St-Juste was the only one locking down pretty much everybody in one-on-one drills. But then here came Dax Milne, and he was the one that actually won against Benjamin St-Juste. Out of everybody Benjamin St-Juste covered, he won the rep. Here comes Dax Milne, and he had a nice, decent amount of separation on him, like 2 yards for an easy win in the one-on-one drill. So I thought that was interesting. Dax Milne making plays against one of our tougher one-on-one cornerback matchups in Benjamin St-Juste. That's notable. When you do it against the best, coaches are going to take notice. And then Dax Milne in team drills even had a really good catch in traffic with heavy contact. So, man, Dax Milne had himself a day on Tuesday, man, trying to remind people that I should be one of the receivers that makes this roster. But then you have Kyrick McGowan, who had the best catch of the day with a 40-yard bomb from Taylor Heineke. And he was well covered too. He just went up there, both hands, and made sure he came down with the ball. And also, really random receiver news, Terry McLaurin took a reverse and followed a bunch of good blocks for an easy first down, and it could have been more. So I think that's really interesting that we're trying Terry McLaurin in ways like that. It's not just going to be Curtis Samuel. It's going to be Terry McLaurin, running backs. Everybody's going to be used in creative ways by Scott Turner. Then moving on to tight ends. I mean, the story of training camp is that Cole Turner literally catches everything. I mean, he had a really good catch in team drills, which is like the highlight that went around on Twitter for a little while. I mean, it was literally perfect coverage. And if you look at the clip, everybody is covered very well. And even when Cole Turner's going up to get it, it's literally perfect coverage. Cole Turner's just 6'5". The corner covering him is not 6'5", and it's just nothing you can do. Carson Wentz put it up to where only Cole Turner can get it, and of course he came down with it as Cole Turner. By now, y'all should know that he catches everything. And so I just can't wait to see what this looks like in the regular season against other teams, because you can have perfect coverage, but if Carson Wentz and Cole Turner are on the same page, they're dialed in, the chemistry is beautiful, there's literally nothing a defense can do, and they're doing it against us right now. Our secondary has been one of our best position groups so far in training camps, and Cole Turner's still finding a way to make plays, because again, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how great your coverage is. A 6'5", 6'6" quarterback throwing it to a 6'5", 6'6" tight end, if they're on the same page, it's literally nothing a DB can do. There's no DB out here walking around 6'6" or taller. And even beyond just what he's doing in the red zone, that play is an example of how he can get open even down the seam, deep down the field, intermediate routes, things like that. That was not a red zone play that we were just discussing. That was a regular open field from their own like 20-yard line. Cole Turner opening things up in the middle of the field. Like I've been saying since we drafted him, I think he's going to surprise some people by how open he gets in the middle of the field. He's not only going to be a red zone threat. I think you can actually utilize Cole Turner the entire length of the field. Now moving on to the offensive line. Overall, Andrew Norwell had a really bad day. Now granted, he was matched up against Jonathan Allen, who you can argue is a top 3 defensive tackle in the NFL, but he had a bad day. Meanwhile, Samuel Cosmi, who was matched up against Montez Sweat a lot in team drills and one-on-one drills, and Montez Sweat, along with Kendall Fuller, you could argue have been the 2 best players in training camp so far, regardless of position. And Samuel Cosmi held his own. He did a really good job. They were competing. It was back and forth, really tough matchup, which makes me really excited about Samuel Cosmi, because my biggest worry with Samuel Cosmi is his pass protection. And with Montez Sweat looking like he's about to finally have that breakout season that we've been waiting for so far in training camp, again, you can argue he's been the best player in training camp so far between him and Kendall Fuller. And the fact that Samuel Cosmi held it down and basically gave Montez Sweat his least effective day of training camp has me really excited, man. I'm really, truly excited about the potential of Samuel Cosmi. We already know he's already one of the best run blocking tackles in the NFL already, even after missing quite a bit of his rookie season last year. Once he gets his pass protection down, it's over with. Pro Bowl right tackle. But yeah, Andrew Norwell struggled. It was pretty bad. Again, you kind of expect that against a Jonathan Allen, but we still need better, because you're going to go against really good defensive tackles. I mean, we got to go against Jordan Davis twice this season, a Georgia Bulldog. And you know what, you got to step it up. But overall, the offensive line had a way better day in the first day with pads than they've had so far in days without pads, which is what you'd expect. It allows offensive linemen to be more physical. They have more surface area to work with their hands to block guys. So you'd expect for the offensive line to be better and more competitive against the defensive line when we finally put the pads on. But leading up to that, you'd expect the defensive line to win against the offensive line constantly without the pads. So everything just basically going according to plan. And now you have running lanes opening up. I mean, like I said earlier with the running backs, granted, they made a lot of good plays, but for the most part, it was the offensive line as to why so many guys were just having 15-yard rushing gains and things like that, and just wide open holes to run through. Also, I'm hearing great things about Chris Paul, the 7th rounder, the guard. He's holding his own at left guard. He's working with the 2nd unit for the most part. He used to work with the 3rd unit. Now they're moving him up step by step. Maybe he'll surprise people and end up starting at guard and working with the first team. But as of right now, it's really encouraging to hear that he used to work with the 3rd string guys last week, and this week he's been with the 2nd stringers because he's just been playing so well. And it's like, okay, let's see. I mean, you balling out against them. Let's see what you can do against these guys. And so far, he's handling it very well. And then starting with the defense, just to let you know, I mean, we just talked about this. Montez Sweat and Kendall Fuller, everybody pretty much agrees they have easily been the 2 MVPs of training camp so far. And that's not even just defensively. That's just the entire team. As far as consistency and making big plays, those guys have been balling. And it's really interesting too, because those 2 guys really showed up on Tuesday, day 6, as in yesterday. In 11-on-11's red zones, Montez Sweat had one play where he pressured Carson Wentz and caused him to move from the pocket and just flip the ball out of bounds. And then another play soon afterwards, Kendall Fuller broke up a pass to Cam Sims. And it was a really good throw, and Cam Sims went up really high to get it, and then Kendall Fuller stripped the ball out of his hands. I mean, whether it's making a break on the ball and getting there before the ball gets to the receiver, whether it's the receiver catching it and Kendall Fuller finding a way to get it out of his hands before he touches the ground, Kendall Fuller has made a play no matter what. He's finding a way. But since we're with the defense, we're going to start with the defensive line. Casey Toohill, with James Smith-Williams out, has basically been the starting defensive end opposite of Montez Sweat, and it sounds like he's been having a pretty decent camp. Of course, it's not Chase Young level, but he's been holding his own. It's not like, oh man, that side of the defensive line is terrible. It's also not great so far though. And then, like I already told you earlier, Jonathan Allen was dominating in practice yesterday. One-on-ones, whatever, he was not playing with people. Mainly Andrew Norwell, but it didn't matter who it was. Jonathan Allen was winning the rep. Even one rep against Andrew Norwell, Jonathan Allen threw him to the ground. I mean, it was bad. And like I said earlier, Robert Mathis had one good play where he just pretty much bottled up the offensive line, and Antonio Gibson had nowhere to go, and he got him for basically a tackle for loss. Slash, like, it was kind of at the line of scrimmage, really. And even beyond just that play, I'm hearing that Phidarian Mathis flashed quite a bit in yesterday's practice, Tuesday, day 6, in that middle of the defensive line. So that's great to hear, because I haven't been hearing much from him. And now that we put on the pads, we're starting to hear that Phidarian Mathis is doing his thing and looking like he's worthy of that second-round pick. But we'll see. And like I mentioned earlier, with Casey Toohill starting opposite of Montez Sweat with the first-team defense, been making some plays. He had one play where he had Antonio Gibson in the backfield for a tackle for loss. David Bada was looking really good in one-on-ones. I love to hear it. You know that we're really looking for that fourth defensive tackle. I mean, after Phidarian Mathis, nothing is guaranteed, and David Bada is trying to enter his name into the sweepstakes. And then a name I love to hear positive things about, and I haven't heard much from him so far in the offseason, but Shaka Toney did a really good pass rush move into the inside to force the quarterback out of the pocket. I love to hear that. I mean, that's what you'd expect from somebody like a Shaka Toney, but I still love to hear it. And then linebacker-wise, Jamin Davis was running with the second team. Not exactly sure why. You had Cole Holcomb and David Mayo out there with the first-team defense to start at 11 on 11s. But beyond that, I mean, Cole Holcomb had so many great things to say about Jamin Davis in his press conference. And then Ron Rivera in his press conference had nothing but great things to say about Jamin Davis. Said that he's seen a lot of positive growth from him. He's understanding concepts, and that was one area that he was struggled with mightily last year, and that they've seen a major improvement in going into this season. They're saying that's probably the thing he's improved in the most. Also, speaking of Cole Holcomb, he said that being the Mike spot gives him more control. He likes the chess match feel of it, and he feels he's more capable of filling that role now. So I'm excited about what Cole Holcomb's going to do at Mike linebacker. We'll see. Then defensive backs wise, again, like I said earlier, in one-on-one, St. Juice was literally locking everything and everyone down other than the Dax Milne play. But then even Bobby McCain had some really impressive pass breakups in one-on-ones as well, along with Kendall Fuller. Those guys got beat occasionally, but overall they stepped up and made some plays as well. And then, I mean, now granted, Benjamin St. Juice did lock everything down for the most part, but there was one play against Jahan Dotson where he got a little too grabby, and Chris Harris, the DB's coach, also let him know, like, yeah, you will be flagged for that. And then also the other negative play was the Dax Milne play. But other than that, Benjamin St. Juice was locking down anybody and everything. Also heard a lot of great things about Percy Butler and Derek Forrest. They both flashed quite a bit when the pads came on, so I'm really excited about that. And of course, Cameron Curl still doing Cameron Curl things. The only reason we don't really talk about him much is because he's just so consistent and so good that it's just not really much to talk about. Kind of like with JD McKissick as a third down back, Cameron Curl is a safety, we already know. But it is really exciting to hear that Percy Butler and Derek Forrest have been flashing. Those are things you expect, though. You expect guys with high ceilings, low floors, boom or bust, freak athletes to flash, but they're flashing more often than you'd expect, and that does have me more optimistic about how they may be used this season by Jack Del Rio. Of course, I don't expect either of those guys to really start much or even play a lot as of right now, but eventually, I mean, it'd be nice if Percy Butler becomes your starting free safety and Derek Forrest can basically become your starting Buffalo nickel. Also, Josh Drayden made a couple of plays today. I mean, he's on the back end of the roster, but it's good to hear that he's been doing his thing. I'm hearing from several reporters that Josh Drayden has been outplaying Danny Johnson so far in camp. But I'm not sure if y'all saw it, but Josh Drayden was the one that was the victim that had to carry all of the pads and helmets to the locker room. I'm not sure if y'all saw that clip. If you haven't, here you go. So sadly, he had to do that. That's just rookie duties. I mean, all of them have to do it at some point. But Josh Drayden flashing more than Danny Johnson is something really interesting and something I definitely didn't expect to hear. And then no real special teams news, just some random things like rookie linebacker Bryce Notre, who's the one that Jared Patterson dug his shoulder pads into on one rep, is also another person that had post-practice pad duty. So him and Josh Drayden were going through it after practice. And then Jahan Dotson had an interesting quote on Carson Wentz. He said, quote, "Very laid back like myself, but a tremendous leader. He helps me in every phase that I need help with. He's been a great supporter and a great QB for me. A guy putting it on the money every single time I need it there. I'm targeted. So it's great to have him," unquote. And then lastly, just very random, but he said on the biggest differences from college to NFL, he said, quote, "Way longer meetings, meeting room all day, and shorter practices," unquote. And I thought that was really interesting. So it's way more meetings, but less practices. The college doesn't have an NFL PA to limit how much they practice. And so the coaches are like, well, you're here. We might as well just be in meetings and review more film with the time that we're not practicing. Why not? And yeah, man, that's the end of this part 1. Make sure y'all go ahead and check out part 2 that will be coming out later on, kind of soonish. So be on the lookout for that. I'm out.